The painting hung in the corner of the dimly lit living room, its ornate gold frame gleaming under the soft glow of the overhead lamp. Evelyn had picked it up from a local antique store, drawn by the detailed brushwork and the haunting beauty of the scene. The painting depicted a woman in a dark green dress, standing on a balcony with a vast, misty landscape behind her. Her pale face was stoic, eyes distant, as though she held secrets that refused to be spoken. At first, Evelyn admired how it gave her apartment a touch of elegance, but as the days passed, unease began to settle. Each time she glanced at the painting, something seemed different. The tilt of the woman's head appeared slightly altered, the shadows around her face deepened, and the landscape behind her grew darker. She convinced herself it was nothing more than a trick of the mind, a result of the ever-changing light. But the changes became impossible to ignore. On the third morning, the woman's expression shifted. The once emotionless face now bore a hint of sorrow. Evelyn stood frozen, staring at the painting, her heart pounding. The balcony railing behind the woman had warped, curving unnaturally. The mist in the background thickened, curling like tendrils around the figure. Determined to rationalize it, she attributed the eerie alterations to an overactive imagination. She even searched for hidden mechanisms within the frame, convinced it was some elaborate gimmick. Yet, she found nothing but aged and cracked canvas. Days turned into restless nights. Evelyn often woke to the unsettling sensation of being watched. The shadows in the room twisted with the dim moonlight, casting unfamiliar shapes on the walls. One night, unable to sleep, she flicked on the lamp and stared at the painting. The woman's sorrow had deepened into despair, her once distant gaze now fixed directly on Evelyn. The eyes seemed to glint with a faint, unsettling awareness. The background, too, had transformed. The landscape was no longer misty but scorched and barren. Trees that once stood tall were now charred husks, and the sky, once a soft gray, bled into a fiery crimson. Desperate for answers, Evelyn contacted the antique store owner. The elderly man listened with a furrowed brow, shaking his head slowly. He revealed that the painting had been sold and returned numerous times, each owner complaining of the same unsettling phenomenon. They claimed the woman in the painting was cursed, a restless spirit bound to the canvas. Some whispered that she had been an artist's lover, tragically taken by the very man who painted her. Consumed by guilt, he immortalized her in the painting, but her soul lingered. Desperate to escape, Evelyn tried to rid herself of the cursed artwork. She wrapped the frame tightly in a thick cloth and carried it to the basement. Yet even as she placed it against the cold concrete wall, she couldn't shake the feeling of those eyes following her. That night, the distant creak of footsteps echoed from below. Though the apartment was empty, the air grew heavy, and whispers slithered through the darkness, indistinct yet chilling. The basement light flickered, and in the brief flashes of illumination, Evelyn glimpsed the shape of a figure standing at the foot of the stairs. The woman from the painting, now free from her confines, her lifeless eyes gleaming with a twisted satisfaction. Determined to confront the fear that plagued her, Evelyn descended into the basement the following day. The painting lay undisturbed, the woman's expression once again solemn. But now, a faint smirk tugged at the corner of her lips. Evelyn's trembling hands gripped the edges of the frame as she attempted to destroy it. She tore at the canvas, but beneath every layer of paint was another image of the woman, each more horrifying than the last. Her laughter echoed through the basement, though no one else was there. Consumed with desperation, Evelyn researched ancient rituals and desperate methods to break the curse. She burned the torn fragments of the painting, scattering the ashes far from her home. Yet that night, when she returned, the painting was back, pristine, unblemished, hanging once again in the corner of the living room. The woman's face now bore a knowing smile, as though mocking Evelyn's futile attempts. Neighbors began to whisper about the strange happenings. The walls thudded with unexplained knocks, shadows danced where none should be, and the apartment grew cold despite the summer heat. Evelyn's nights were plagued with visions of the woman emerging from the frame, her hands reaching, her whispers promising eternal companionship. The line between the painting and reality blurred, and soon Evelyn found herself questioning whether she was still in her own world. Panic consumed Evelyn as she fled the apartment, vowing never to return. But even as she tried to leave the past behind, the image of the woman haunted her thoughts. News of the abandoned apartment soon spread. Neighbors spoke of faint cries in the night and the echo of footsteps that never ceased. And when a new tenant arrived, they found the painting, pristine and untouched, hanging once again in the corner of the dimly lit living room. The woman in the dark green dress, her sorrowful gaze fixed firmly forward, waited for the next to fall under her watchful eye.